Good morning, Northwoods Baptist Church. Excited to be meeting with you again this morning as we are continuing our Hook, Line, and Sinker series. Specifically, we're looking at the 6 things in that first hook, a fragmented family, and the 12 things that we can do to restore a fragmented family. We looked at the first 6 on our last lesson, and now we're putting the fragmented family together again, part 2. So we'll continue putting the fragmented family back together by looking at 6 more vital principles. Number 7, connect with the heart. There are many activities that you could do to put you together as a family, but not actually connecting you. In Newsweek magazine in September of 2004, it stated that family time or quality time is at the mall instead of being spent in the backyard. In other words, sometimes our focus is more on having stuff than it is with connecting with each other. Many activities do not create a heart connection. There's lots of things that can go on in our life, and we can do a lot of different things that we think is family time, together time, when we're really not even doing anything at all together. Which brings us to the letter B, is we need to create family settings that connect the heart. We must work to find and create family settings that are connecting and connective. Many parents have mentioned the fact that some of the best times that their kids open up and connect to them is at bedtime. There's something about the end of the day, the quietness of the night, the fact that the kids are like to stay awake a little bit longer, and we'll talk about things. One father told me that he would sometimes sit on the edge of his bed, sit on the edge of the bed of his teens, for an hour or so at bedtime, talking about whatever they wanted to talk about. He credited these moments as some of the most important in their family life. Whenever or wherever your teenager opens up to you, you want to find that moment and connect. Kids often feel that their parents don't even know them. You can't afford to let a week go by when you don't feel an intimate connection with the heart of your son or daughter. The enemy, he's way too crafty, and your connection is the first line of defense against his gaining ground in the heart of your teenager. Children, honestly, I've had many teenagers, kids, young people tell me that when their parents try to spend time with them, it's just plain awkward, especially whenever it's a brand new concept. The letter C is work through the awkwardness of reconnecting. Don't let that awkwardness stop you from opening up. It's normal to feel weird about this, and then this sometimes, but once you get beyond the feeling weird, some of the great moments with your mom and dad, they're just ahead. So get through that awkwardness. Number 8, pray with them and pray for them. Last lesson, we actually read Philippians chapter 4, but let's read it again here. Just verse 6 and 7 of Philippians 4. It says, "Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." There are few things that speak to the heart like prayer does. That's letter A. There are few things that speak to the heart like prayer does. I recently talked to a young father, and I encouraged him to spend time next to his struggling son, to spend some time praying at the bedside of their child, and praying for them, even though the son was resistant. The reason why, letter B, prayer shows humility. Whenever we get down before God, it shows that we don't have all the answers. We have to take it to God who will give the answers. It also tells us, letter C, it's only by prayer that we're able to fight spiritual battle. Remember, whenever we're fighting a rebellious child, we're going and we're trying to help someone who is struggling, a young person or a child who's going through difficulties, or even if we have challenges in our own life, that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, against principalities, against powers, against the spiritual rulers of wickedness in high places. We have a spiritual battle that we are fighting. We can't fight a spiritual battle with a paddle. We can't fight a spiritual battle with a sword or with a belt, even though sometimes it would be a whole lot more pleasant. And now there is a place for those things. However, spiritual battles have to be fought in the area of prayer, to be willing to pray for our children. So this father, he was instructed to pray out loud specifically, and pray pleadingly, asking God to help you to be the right father, And then challenged him also to ask God to soften the heart of his son. Whether or not your son agrees to pray or just sits and you're just sitting there listening to it, you have to pray. The son, he resisted, and he refused to join his dad in prayer, but dad prayed anyways. He got on his knees and he prayed. Could you imagine how foolish he must have felt praying there stone while his son sat stone-faced? After prayer, he told his son he loved him, and he left the room. 10 minutes later, that young man burst out of his room in tears, threw his arm around his dad's neck in an apology. The prayer of his father was more than his hard heart could handle, because we don't fight spiritual battles with anything other than prayer. That's what we use to fight spiritual battles. Number 10, show frequent and appropriate affection. Parents with grown children have often shared that physical touch of affection is critical in child rearing. One sign of a tender, hearted and spiritual bond is whenever a child responds favorably to the appropriate affection of their godly parent. Letter A, physical affection strengthens a heart connection. Physical affection strengthens a heart connection. If your son or daughter refuses a hug and pulls away from a loving arm and rejects a tender touch, something's terribly wrong. As outward closure is a warning sign of much more deeper and dangerous issues that are going on. Many parents shrug this off and they eventually get numb to this kind of behavior, saying, oh, you know how kids are, you know how teenagers are, you know how boys are, we reason. Yet as the spiritual heart connection is restored between parents and child, there's always going to be a naturally favorable response towards the expression of love. And someone may say, but I'm not the affectionate type. You may be thinking, you might be thinking, I wonder where that thought comes from. Where does that thought come from? Letter B, show affection whether or not it comes naturally to you. The truth is, your children need you to be affectionate. Whether or not you've ever received this type of affection, you're more than capable, by God's grace, to express it. Children of every age, whether a young child, a teenager, they still need a hug, a kiss, a loving arm around the shoulders, and so on and so forth. A spiritual connection takes place with these affectionate exchanges. If this is missing in your relationship, bring it back. But be patient. It may take some time before it gets to feel normal or before it's readily received. C. Affection is especially critical after times of discipline. It's vital to a healthy relationship. Affection is especially critical during times of discipline. Your loving embrace is going to soften whatever punishment that you're handing out. The more importantly, it'll communicate that you're not rejecting your child, but that you're simply dealing with a problem. Your love becomes the foundation of the discipline in this case, and your affection speaks volumes to the true motives of the heart. If you can't hug your son or daughter right after a session or a time of discipline, it's probably a good sign that you've acted out of anger and that you've had the wrong spirit or the wrong motives. In much the same way, your son or daughter, if they refuse to be hugged after a time or session of discipline, it's probably a sign of a wounded and closed-off spirit. Don't be content to let this remain. This is a dangerous, fragmenting trap. Work through it together, and when all is said and done, restore your ability to express affection one towards another. Number 10, don't stop serving God. I've already anticipated that the devil is telling you, all right, so get out of choir, spend more time together. If you don't go soul winning, you can have an extra family night. Or it's that ushering. That ushering at church, that's what's pulling you away and tearing up your family. Stop teaching Sunday school. That's the way to more quality time. At letter A, family time is not an excuse to stop serving God. Family time is not an excuse to stop serving God. Unless you have too many ministry hats, you can't stop serving God and hope to gain ground with your family. Isn't it interesting that we're not willing to give up a TV night, but we are quick to give up a visitation night for family time? Ouch. Before you start taking an axe to the eternal investments of your life, take a good long look at the self-centered things you do with your time. Letter B, Be willing to quit some personal pursuits first. Be willing to lose some of the selfish things and remember that your kids need to see your love and commitment to Christ. It also wouldn't hurt for your son to know that he means more to you than that jalopy that's sitting out in the garage. Don't fall for the lie that ministry will hurt your family unless you're extremely overcommitted, in which case simply learn to say no. But in the case of being overly committed to the ministry, realize it's not the ministry's fault. Ministry's not the enemy, though your true enemy would love to think that it is. Letter C, surely your family is your first ministry. So letter C, your family is your first ministry. On your notes, I need you to do something there. I need you to put a comma there, and I need you to add a phrase. Your family is your church first ministry, but it probably shouldn't be your only ministry. Your family is your first one, but it shouldn't be your only ministry. So never stop serving, which leads us to number 11, which is serve God together. Choose to serve God together. Turn with me to Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25. He says, let's go ahead and read 24. And let us consider one another to provoke and to love good works, not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. Whenever we talk about this specifically, as the manner of some, but exhorting one another. Our assembling is supposed to be for the use of exhortation. Verse 24, it's supposed to be for the sake of us provoking one another to love and to good works. And we need to be doing it more and more as the day of the Lord, comes in, and as the day of the Lord draws closer. Why would we miss this incredible solution? One young lady recently shared with me that the most valued time that she had with her parents was times that she was able to soul win. I remember as a youth pastor having the opportunity to go door-to-door knocking and soul winning with some of the young people that were there. And it was the greatest time for building relationships because you had all that time to talk and discuss and to see what was going on in their life. My wife used to go do bus visitation with her dad, and it was opportunity for them to talk, to visit new Christians, to grab lunch together. In a 2 or 3 hour period, the child and the parent can connect with a heart-to-heart, also serving God at the same time, investing into each other's life. What a fantastic combination. These parents are able to lead people to Christ, start discipling new Christians, connect as a family, make valuable ministries at the time, all at the exact same time. Letter A, teach your children to love God by serving God with them. We say, hey, I love you, and Jesus says, if you love me, keep my commandments. I can show him I'm loving him, and I can love serving God, and I can teach my children to serve God with him. Again, don't let the devil tell you that it's just too much God is going to be harmful. There couldn't be more man-centered false concept. God is not a cultural experience. Church is not a social club. You and your family might possibly get an overdose on Boy Scouts, on soccer, on cheerleading, but you can never have too much God. God is the solution to the deepest needs of our life. Church service, Bible studies, revival meetings, ministry opportunities, when shared, are a huge contribution to the spiritual connection of your family. How subtle Satan is to tell us that these good things actually hurt our families, while we simultaneously leave so many other areas untouched and undisputed, like the video camera cabinet, or the remote control, or our internet connection. Let church and ministry commitments bring you together, and don't swallow the lie that you can have too much. You can have too much God. God says in his word, right here in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 20, it says, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching. Parents who give up ministry or church attendance to spend more time together, let's just be honest, usually spend another night of watching TV. As if ministry is a time waster, but TV isn't. Perhaps parents who keep God first will always find that there are plenty of other time wasters. God's priorities are vital for health and a spiritual family. At the deepest part of your family connection, Your children are evaluating your love and desire for God. They're looking at you, parents, to see, is your love for God real? Is this just a show? Is church just a hobby? Is this just socially motivated so we can fit in? Or is it true? Is it real? They're deciding right now whether this God is really that lovable or whether you are pursuing him with your whole heart. If you're looking for every excuse to avoid him, his house, and his family, you're communicating the wrong message. Yet, as your passion for God becomes outwardly apparent, it bubbles over into true worship, into sincere service, and ultimately into your life being committed to follow him. There are proven results that your child will most likely want what you love and serve him too. I think it's amazing is my child and our children will passionately pursue what we're passionate about, what we love. So B, allow church and ministry commitment to bring you closer together. Instead of allowing it to separate you, allow your church ministry commitment to bring you together as a family. Which brings us to number 12, the last one on the list of putting the fragmented family back together. Number 12, recognize that only you hold the power of choice for your family. You're the one who holds the power of choice of whether your family stays fragmented or not. Letter A, don't shift the blame for your bad decisions. Don't shift the blame for your bad decisions. We humans are incredibly quick to blame our bad choices on others. You remember the first human, Adam, whenever they ate the fruit that was there, and God immediately, whenever God came to the garden and he called for Adam, as he called for Adam, and he says, wherefore did thou know that thou was naked? And Adam's first response was, the woman that you gave me. And Eve's first response was, the serpent. We're quick to shift blame on other people. We want to, our bad choices on others, we want to point other people to our bad choices. If we're not spending time with our spouse and our children, it's always someone else's fault. The boss, he's given us too many hours. The pastor, he has too many things going on. The company, the church, someone else is always there to blame. Can I bring this down to the very bottom line? When you stand before the judgment seat of Christ and give account of your life, it's only going to be you standing there. You're not going to be able to point the finger of blame at someone else. It's going to be you. It's going to come down to your personal choice for your life and your family. You hold the power of choice. God has made you responsible and able to respond to the circumstances of life. He expects you to. His commands are clear. His promises are true. But he requires you to step into the playing field and act upon the truth. Letter B is act upon God's truth and make the right decisions by faith. God's made you capable of making the right decisions. Letter C, do the right thing now and don't wait. Don't wait for your circumstances to change so that you're going to have the right choice and so that the right choice will become easy. So often we say, well, I'm going to wait for the right choice to become easy. I'll serve God completely. I'll follow him completely when my kids are out of the house. I'll spend more time with them whenever they're a little bit older and they're able to come and do some of the things that I can do. No, it's never going to become easy. It's only going to become more difficult. That time will never come. It's always difficult to make the right choice in a decision between good and best. Only you have the power to choose the choices for your own family and use it. Don't fall prey to the blame game. The list for fighting fragmentation could go on and on, but it boils down to one thing. Give yourself to your children. Really, there's no formula. There's no quick fix. There's no microwave solution. If you are looking for a quick fix so that you can move on with your life, that's the problem. The Lord and your family should be your life. Letter D, I think it is. Family must be family. God and family must be your first priority. Everything else is negotiable. Everything else is negotiable when it comes to these two priorities. Until you are willing to make this priority shift, nothing is going to change in your life. E, children young people, teenagers, open your heart to your family and embrace the needed change. That's E. Open your heart to your family and embrace the needed change. Children, break down whatever barriers may be in your life, in your heart. Let your parents into your life. Accept the changes that your family needs to make and embrace them with an expedient heart. Um, Realize that you desperately need your parents' nurturing more than you need your friends, more than you need fun or food, or more than you even need oxygen. Your teenage years are soon going to be gone. The time as a child, it passes quickly, and you look back and say, wow, I cannot believe that I'm 12 years old. As a parent, looking at my son who's going to be turning 12, this Saturday, I'm sitting there going, wow, how in the world is he 12 years old? I remember just a few days ago that he was sitting there running around the house and doing this, or that he was throwing his Annie toy down the toilet and flushing the toilet. That was just a few days ago in my mind. But it's been nearly 10 years since that took place. And I say that to say, wow, it flies all the way through there. And you may be sitting there thinking, teenagers, you may be sitting there thinking, wow, that means I have this time, and then it's forever going to be until I can get my license. Forever until I turn 18. It's going to be forever until I get to vote. It's going to be forever until I get to graduate college. It's going to be forever until I get married. And for some of you guys, it probably will be forever until you get married. I've met you. But sorry. And as we look at it, we may say, man, that's going to take forever. But before you know it, you're going to have your own friends. You're going to have your own family. You're going to have your own children that you're going to be developing a relationship with. And then the defragmenting will have to be taken, and you're going to have to learn these principles of reuniting with your family. Don't resist it, embrace it, contribute to it. It's for your own good. Consider our Heavenly Father. He not only provides for our needs, He gives us salvation, and He cares for us in crisis. He's just there. He promised to never leave us or forsake us. He pursues us with an unrelenting love. He promised to guide us with His eye. There has never been a moment in your life that you did not have all of His attention. You have never uttered a prayer or needed His presence when He wasn't there. You have never needed to fear that He would leave you or reject you. He is all yours, all the time. And when you are fragmented, when you are far away from Him because of your sin, He journeyed across the universe, spanning all of time and space. He put on a body and died a brutal death, taking upon Himself your sins so that to defragment and restore your relationship back to Him. He came through time and space to save you. Wow. To make you forever His child. He did this for all men, and He offers this wonderful gift to all in faith who will believe and trust and receive His offer of salvation and forgiveness. He wants us to fully love and accept each other's by His love with that same faith. In spite of our shortcomings and less than lovable qualities, He loves us. Parents, you're not omnipresent. You may not be all-powerful, but then again, your kids don't expect you to be. Yet, deep within their innermost beings, in ways that they cannot consciously express or understand, they need and they want you to be with them, frequently, generously, and faithfully. They long for you to span the canyons of their callousness, to fight the forces of their darkness, to lay down your own life, your own dreams on the line if necessary, to restore them to your love. Letter B is, you have to be willing to give yourself like Christ did for us. I've seen spiritual problems in the life of a teenager that were difficult and were big. But I've never seen a spiritual problem in the life of a teenager that couldn't be solved through nurturing time with godly parents. No wonder the devil fights so ruthlessly to tear and destroy our families, to fragment us. He strikes at the foundation, and if the foundation crumbles, everything else is going to follow. So we're done with hook number 1. We've peeled back the bait. We've peeled back the bait that's there. We've revealed the hook. We see the hook that's there. how are we going to, as parents, as Christian, as God's people, how are we going to caution ourselves and warn ourselves and protect ourselves against that hook? Don't let our families spend so much time away from each other. It's time to reverse this process. It's time to break out of the cultural norm and to start swimming against the current. It's time to do what God called us to do. There you are, about to jump into the current of life. The slightest lack of concentration could rip you apart and sweep you away in the rush of culture. The risk is great. The threat is real. The enemy is cold-blooded and merciless. So link arms, grab hands, lock eyes, hang on to God, and determine that nothing, absolutely nothing, is going to pull you apart. No force can come between you. No power can sever your connection. Together, let's make a covenant that no matter what's going to happen in life, that we are going to stay together. Guess what? As we trust God, He makes us where we can trust Him.